My name is Branan Horak, and I have lived all over, actually. I lived overseas quite a lot when I was a kid, but I moved back to El Paso when I was in 8th grade and went to high school here, went to Eastwood High School, and then moved away for college. My husband is also an El Pasoan who I knew from church when I was in high school, but we didn't start dating until college. We both were at UT Austin. And then we moved to Philadelphia. He is an architect and a developer. And I was in graduate school at Rutgers University. That's where I got my master's and PhD. And we had our first child there. And we loved the East Coast and we loved Philadelphia. But once we had a kid, we suddenly started thinking about just how easy it is to live in El Paso and how nice it is to be closer to family. And so we moved back to El Paso, I want to say 24 years ago. And at first I wasn't completely sure what I would feel about working at UTEP, but I love teaching at UTEP. I have taught literature, I've taught religious studies and women and gender studies, and I'm involved in, other kinds of activities at UTEP, and it's just so rewarding. It's such a wonderful place to be. I love the students, I love the faculty and the staff. I was a huge fan, continue to be a huge fan of Diana Natalicios. And so a lot of my life is taken up with UTEP. I'm also very involved in the YWCA, both the YWCA El Paso, and I'm on the board of the YWCA USA. And a lot of times when people think about the YWCA, they think about, our swimming and fitness centers, or maybe they think about our child care centers. But the YWCA is a social justice movement. And our mission statement is very aspirational, but very inspirational. The mission statement is eliminating racism, empowering women, and promoting peace, justice, freedom, and dignity for all. So it's a mouthful, but it is like everything we do, we try to tie back to that. So for example, during this current pandemic, we have provided childcare initially for first responders, and then we began to provide childcare for respite purposes for people who needed their children to be out of the house for a while. Now we're providing childcare to anybody. In fact, we have a wonderful opportunity for many people to apply for free childcare. So you can go to ywcaelpaso.org to see if you can get free childcare. But that is an empowering women issue. So it is still tied to our mission statement. If women can't participate in the workforce, they can't take care of their families. Also in our child care and after school care programs, which is for elementary and middle school kids, we provide a lot of our racial justice programming and social equity programming. And that's through books that they read, through conversations that they have, videos that they watch, different types of celebrations that they are exposed to, different people that they learn about. So again, every single thing we do, we try to imbue it with the mission of the organization and with a social justice bent. We have a large veterans program, and often military families can qualify for the free childcare. And so or if not free, reduced childcare. So we have grants regularly. We have federal and state and city government grants that help pay for childcare. And we do have programs for veterans as well. What advice would I give to my 17-year-old self is an interesting question. And it's something I've actually thought about because I have a 26-year-old daughter. And that's not quite the same as a 17-year-old self, but still a younger woman. I'm very close to my two nieces. And, I want to tell them all the time, you have everything you need. Trust in that. Believe in yourself. And don't listen to others and don't try to please others. Follow your own core values. And have confidence in the talents that you have, the intelligence that you have, the wisdom that you already have. So I do tell them that, and I want them to believe it. The problem is you don't get that confidence in life until you have lived life. And so it is frustrating sometimes when I see young women, whether it's my daughter, my nieces, or my students, and I think, how are they not more confident? They're so amazing. But then I have to remember, they haven't gotten that life wisdom yet because they haven't lived enough life yet. I think think that women are so powerful because they are so good at taking care of other people. But sometimes we know that taking care of other people leads us to not take care of ourselves, or it leads us to make compromises in our own beliefs and values. And so I think that women need to learn how to be true to who they are and also still take care of other people. And recently I was doing some reading in preparation for some stuff that we're doing at UTEP. And you've probably heard the metaphor, I think it's from a Microsoft CEO, that life, you have three balls in life. You have your personal life and your professional life and your health. And your personal life and your health are glass balls, and your professional life is a rubber ball. So you don't want to drop those glass balls because they'll shatter, but the rubber ball will bounce back. So I think that's a fabulous metaphor. But I was reading a woman who took it further, and the woman is like, you don't have three balls. If you're a woman, you have like 45 balls. And some of those personal life family balls are rubber. It's okay to tell your kids sometimes, I'm not going to be able to make it to that soccer game. I'm not going to be able to provide homemade treats for your class party. I'm going to pick them up at Albertsons. It's okay sometimes with your health to say, you know what, this week I may not exercise as often as I should, but that's what I need to do this week. And as women, sometimes at work we have some glass balls, because at work we also end up taking care of other people and not taking care of ourselves. And that's why we don't advance many times as quickly as our male colleagues do. So sometimes we need to say, I have to prioritize this work issue. So I think, women are told, nothing but family. That's not always true. And I think that we do our kids a disservice if we raise them thinking that the women in their lives are only responsible for taking care of them. Then we're going to end up raising very selfish children and children without an adequate amount of empathy. An aha moment in my life, and I'm probably going to tear up talking about this, was when my father died. And it will be 14 years in November. See, I knew I wasn't going to make it through this one very well. But my dad was a very loving individual. He just loved my sister and I empathetically and unconditionally. And when he died, I changed my parenting, because I had been, I think, a little too strict and a little too critical of my kids. Making sure they always towed the line, and and minded their manners and did their schoolwork, and were always, I was hard on them. And I thought, I'm not going to not still be a little hard on them, but I need to really make sure they know that I love them unconditionally. Don't assume they know that. Well, I'm their mom. Of course they know I love them unconditionally, but say it and act like it. And because that's what I knew I was going to miss when my dad died. And so I knew I had to share that gift with my kids and parent in that way. And I have going forward. And I hope I've done a good job of that. If I had the opportunity to talk to somebody alive or deceased, I was thinking about, I would love to talk to some women from, historically powerful women, and just ask them, like, how did you do it? And women who weren't necessarily all wonderful icons of feminist values, but it'd be interesting just to hear their life stories. I'd love to talk to Queen Elizabeth I. I would love to talk to Jane Austen. I'd love to ask them, how did you accomplish what you accomplished? And and I think we could learn from that. But when I was thinking about who I'd like to talk to from the past, I really right now thought about, I would rather talk to somebody from the future. So I would like to talk to Monica Tucker in November of 2021 and say, how are we? Are we okay? Did everything turn out? I'm dying to know what's going to happen. So right now I'm a little more future focused than I am past focused, I have to admit. What would I like to accomplish or witness in this lifetime? Well, I would like to witness the first female vice president being elected in November. And I would like to witness a woman in the White House, whether that's Kamala Harris as the president in the White House, whether that's Kamala Harris or another woman. I really think we are way past due to have a woman in that office. I would also like to witness and participate in us taking climate change more seriously. And this is an issue that I think young people are so much better on than we are, but also young people are so much more troubled about it than we are. I have young students, both female and male students, tell me all the time that they don't want to have children. They don't want to bring a child into a world when they are reading science reports that are saying in 30 to 50 years, we will have drastic global impacts. And hearing that is heartbreaking. And of course, I tell them, don't make up your mind just yet. Give yourself time to think about a family. But I also understand where they're coming from. Because, in 50 years, I won't be here, but they will, and their children will. So this is something that we have to take seriously today. We needed to take it seriously years ago, but now we have to catch up. And so I hope to be a part of that, and I hope to see us make real progress in the next few years. One place I would like to visit and why is difficult, because there are so many places I would like to go to. But when I think about this question right now, because of what we've been going through with all of the very difficult times that we've been in recently, I would like to go to a beach in either Greece, the whitewashed buildings and the blue tops and the beautiful sea. I've never been to Greece, so to see those pictures, I'd love to go somewhere like that, or somewhere in Mexico. I love going to Mexico and just be in a place that is relaxing and calm, where everybody seems very happy, and I can be very happy and relaxed. A quote that inspires me and that I think about a lot, and I've definitely been thinking about it a lot recently, especially when there are people who I love very much, but with whom I disagree very strongly, is Maya Angelou. And I might not get it exactly right, but we all probably know it, where she says that people don't pay attention to what you say and do. They pay attention to how you make them feel. And again, I know I'm not getting her words exactly right, but I think about that because I can argue with somebody about politics, about racial justice issues, about women's rights, but I don't want to ever make them feel like I don't value them as a human being, or that I don't love them if they're a family member that I disagree with. The same is true about my students. There's many times when I just really need to take a step back and think empathetically, because I don't know what they're going through. So I might make them feel stupid, or I might make them feel unprepared, or I might make them feel stressed because I'm like, you still haven't turned your work in. And so instead of saying like, why have you still not turned your assignment in? I need to say, how can I help you get caught up? What's going on that you could share with me, that you feel comfortable sharing with me so that we could problem solve together? If you start with how you're making somebody feel, that really changes both your words and your deeds. Am I currently reading is a fun question for me, because I've run a book group and we are coming up on our 19th year, and it is full of some very intelligent women who always have great ideas of books to read. So I get to read a lot of great books that I wouldn't even know about if they weren't bringing them to me. So we just read this fall, we just read The Vanishing Half. Britt, what is her first name? Britt Bennett. We just finished Louise Erdrich's newest book, The Night Watchman, which was based on her grandfather. It's fiction, but it's loosely based on her grandfather. We're going to be reading A Burning and The City of Girls also this fall. But those books, The Vanishing Half and The Night Watchman, were really based around identity. So The Vanishing Half is about two twins who are African American but very light-skinned, and so one of them decides to pass as white and loses her identity, really loses herself and loses her relationship with her sister. And then The Night Watchman, loosely based on a true story, is around the issue of when many Indian tribes were going to be disenfranchised of their lands. And this was being done in a very gaslighting, like we see gaslighting today. They were told, this will make you more independent so that you can have more agency, when in fact it was devastating. But the Turtle Mountain tribe in the Dakotas fought it, and they ended up not losing their lands. And Louis Erdrich's grandfather, who had much schooling at all, he was the one who sort of led this effort against it being disenfranchised from their lands. And so, but it was also a lot about identity too. There's a great scene in that book where a white man is very attracted to an Indian woman, and he says, and he's just sort of drawn into the whole community, and he says, if I marry her, will I become an Indian? And Thomas, the character based on the grandfather, he says, no. But he says, but that's not who you are. And he said, he had gone to a boarding school for Indian children, which was often designed to make them a little more white. But he said, when I was in the white boarding school, I didn't become white because it's not who I am. So these issues of identity were really interesting to me in both of those novels, because I think that's what we're struggling with a lot right now. We have people who are so interested in trying to put forward an idea of an American identity that ends up just getting rid of all interesting identities and whitewashes what an American identity would be. Isn't it so much more interesting to be the country that doesn't have a uniform identity, but has any number of people of races and cultures and ethnicities and religions that can also, in addition to that, claim to be an American? I mean, for me, that's much more interesting and much more empowering for our country overall. My musical playlist, so that's kind of interesting. I have never been great at selecting music for myself, but one of the fun things about having adult children and teaching at a university is that students always suggest stuff. And so I really like to listen to what's contemporary in their lives too, so I can have an idea of what's going on. And so, but I also, I'm a child of the 80s. I went to high school in the 80s. So the other day when I was kind of upset about how everything was going, what kind of things were going on, I put on some 80s dance music, like the kind that we would dance to when we went to Wattis in the 80s. And that was very therapeutic. I was dancing to the B-52s and the Cars and Blondie, and I was like, that's what I needed. But I really do. If people suggest things to me, I'll listen to them. And sometimes I might only listen to it once, but but I want to know, what my students are listening to. And then I want them, like, especially with lyrics that to me, of course, I'm a middle-aged woman, so I'm like, oh my goodness, those lyrics. But, it's interesting to hear their interpretation of how they find it empowering to women, for example. So I want to hear that and respect that. I might not want to keep listening to it, but I want to be open to the new experience. My life as a woman is rewarding because I love the men in my life. I love my husband very much, Charles Horak, an amazing man. I love my two sons, Richard and Joseph. But it's as a woman that I think as a woman we have special powers. I think my daughter Catherine and I have special powers. We can give and produce life if we choose to. We don't have to, but if we choose to, we can feed a child. There's just so much we can do, and I'm not saying we're better than men, but I am very proud to be a woman, and I think that I'm getting emotional again, but I think that we can seize that power, that potential. That's another great book that you should read, The Power. It's sort of a nice, I can't think of the author, but it's an interesting companion piece to The Handmaid's Tale. It's sort of the reverse, but we have a power within us that I think we need to grab hold of and be confident in using, because I think that we can do a lot of good in the world if we step into service, not just of our families. Now, if that's where a woman is right now, just in service to her family, that's fine. But if it's, if we can be in service to the larger community, I think we have a lot more to offer than we've even begun to realize. What I love about El Paso is the people, hands down. And I bet a lot of women are giving that as the answer. I mean, I have lived in a lot of other places and met wonderful people in those places, but El Paso is special. The people are special. They are very friendly. They're very welcoming. I do think they tend to be open. Not everybody, but I do think we tend to be more open here. I'm not blind to the fact that we have problems here. So I do think sometimes when people say, oh, El Paso doesn't have any problems, let's be realistic. There are problems here, and we need to be realistic so that we can confront them and make things better. But by and large, I think that people here are great. You get in a conversation with, I can get in a conversation with a coworker at UTEP, or with a fellow board member at the YWCA, or with somebody sitting at a table next to me in a restaurant. And it's going to be an interesting conversation, and it's going to be open and friendly, and I really enjoy that. And that's what I've missed during this pandemic. Just walking around in El Paso, strangers smile at you, friends hug you, or kiss you on the cheek, and I love that. I love just the openness and friendliness and love that you often feel in El Paso. I believe El Paso can be more inviting by confronting the problems that we do have. So, for example, this is something you and I have talked about. We often hear people say, well, we don't have racism in El Paso. We absolutely do have racism in El Paso. I have seen it in action. I know you have seen it in action and probably experienced it. We also have colorism in El Paso. My darker skinned students will tell me about how much they are discriminated against, how much more often they're pulled over by the police or by the Border Patrol. We have a lot of classism in El Paso. Sometimes people do, I think more often in El Paso, people tend to hang out with other people who are of a different race than they are or a different religion they are, but usually they're of the same class. And so we don't cross those class boundaries enough in El Paso. We definitely have sexism in El Paso, as we have everywhere, unfortunately, in the world. We do have homophobia in El Paso. We've made huge strides in that area, but it's still there. And so I feel like when people kind of want to talk about El Paso and talk about El Paso exceptionalism, like El Paso doesn't have any of these issues, they're doing El Paso a disservice. We're a strong enough city, an open enough city, a smart enough city to be able to confront our bad side as well, and then to work towards bettering it. So we need to stop acting like we don't have problems and instead say, how do we work together to better these problems? How do we reach out to these communities who still don't have a seat at the table or still feel like their voices are not heard? And how do we work together to make our city even greater? What the world needs now is empathy. That's been my answer lately. It's something that we're working on quite a lot at UTEP and at YWCA to increase it. We're doing with our childcare and after school more emotional intelligence and empathy training to be able to put ourselves in somebody else's shoes. And I think about the immigrant crisis that we are still in. And we kind of forget now because of the Remain in Mexico policy. We're not all as involved as we were for months on end, providing meals and providing clothing and diapers. We're not doing it as much as we were. But for the people who say, well, they shouldn't be here, I'm just stunned by that. I'm like, can you not imagine what they must have been going through to be willing to leave their home countries, what they must have gone through during that journey, what they're facing now after this journey of months, to be met with such anger and be met at the border by people who are fully armed as if they're going into war. I mean, can you not empathetically project and help yourself understand what it might be like to be a person like this? So even if you disagree with them being here, can you not at least provide them with a hot meal or something that they need? And can you not at least encourage politicians to find a more humane solution? Separating families. How can you hear about that and say, well, they shouldn't have come here anyway? It takes my breath away that people can lack empathy to that extent, to not at least try to imagine what these people are going through. And I feel like that applies to so many things, so many isms racism, sexism, so many phobias, transphobia, homophobia. Just imagine what it's like. You just project imaginatively in your mind what it must be like to be that person, and then maybe you can like open up a little bit in your feelings and meet them halfway. So I think what the world needs now is empathy. We need to be able to put ourselves in somebody else's shoes. And I can tell you a joke about that. So if somebody asks you to walk a mile in their shoes, then you should do it, because then you're a mile away from them and you have their shoes. For me, a jewel in the desert is our mountains. And I think we forget, we take them for granted. So I live near the campus, near UTEP. So I live right by, the Crazy Cat trails, but we also have Trans Mountain. And it's so fun when we have people come and visit. One of my nieces was here for the summer recently, and she just kept saying, like, you have a mountain in the middle of your city. And we just take it for granted. I can walk over from my house to a mountain and climb it. And it's beautiful. And there's beautiful views. And we forget that's pretty unique to just have a mountain with a whole bunch of great trails for hiking or biking or walking right in the middle of our city. So I think we don't take advantage of our mountains enough. And when you do move somewhere else, that's what you miss. I remember missing the mountains. My kids all miss the mountains. I remember trying to think, how do you know your way around a city if you don't have a mountain in the middle to navigate north, south, east, west, But I love our mountains. And my personal message to El Pasoans is to vote. Are you going to vote in person? If so, go early to avoid the lines. Or if there are long lines, then you have a chance to try again. Don't wait until election day. But you have to vote. It is so crucial to vote. And in fact, El Paso often gets ignored in state politics because we have such a low voter turnout. Until we start turning out, we're not going to be paid attention to. Now, our turnout jumped quite a bit in 2018, and it can jump even higher in 2020. We can put El Paso on the map for state politics, and we can put Texas on the map for national politics if we all get out and vote. So please vote. Make sure your friends and family vote as well.